Joining me right now to talk more about all of this is Congressman Jared Moskowitz. He is a Democrat from Florida. Congressman, good to see you. So, how are you feeling here? Are you as exhausted as we are, those of us who have been watching, all of this? Are you hopeful? Are you feeling defeated? What?
No, thanks for having me on. No, I'm not tired. This is what we're supposed to be doing, right? I mean, it took a little longer than we would have liked. We didn't need to get to this point to avert a government shutdown because we could have done this obviously days or weeks ago. But look, this is what the people have sent us to do. So I'm glad we passed this on a bipartisan basis out of the House. I am hopeful. I think the Senate is going to pass this. I think this will get to the president's desk and it will get signed. The timing of which I obviously don't know because I don't control the Senate. But what I do think is obviously we are clearly trying to do what we can to avert a government shutdown. I'm glad the House took the first step and passed this bill on a bipartisan basis. When
I spoke with Virginia Senator Warner earlier, he said he was very perplexed. He was really speaking, mostly to the Senate, saying, a great majority of Republicans were on board with Ukrainian aid, and he also spoke to, a great majority of Republicans in the House on board with Ukraine aid. Is this a great disappointment that has been removed from this package, even if it means keeping government working for another 45 days?
No, because I don't believe that, that the Ukraine funding is over, right? I can't shut the government down because we don't get Ukraine funding, right? I got to fund the U.S. government first before I can then go provide foreign aid to other countries. And so this was step one, keeping the government open so that we can then solve the Ukraine issue. I support Ukraine funding. I support the White House's request for Ukraine funding. But this was the vote to keep the government open. And I'm not going to shut the government down over foreign aid.
Well, that sounds like what Senator Rand Paul said. But I hear you. You are still taking the position that over time, maybe within the 45 days, if indeed it passes in the Senate, we're looking at live pictures right now, the Senate chamber. If indeed it passes, you do believe that somewhere in that 45-day period, you will resume conversations about trying to, or you think there's great support for resuming conversations about trying to include Ukraine aid in the package?
I do, and I support the funding, and I think we're delaying the inevitable, so I do agree there that, we could have done it today, and I think we're delaying the inevitable. I think we're going to have that vote. I will vote for support of the Ukraine funding, but this kept the government open. This gave us the $16 billion of disaster aid, being from Florida, being in hurricane season, being a former director of emergency management. That disaster aid was critical. FEMA needed those resources to help communities, cities, counties, states that have been affected by hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, fires. And so, this was, 90% of what I would have liked to see. So I'm not going to let perfect become the enemy of the good. I'm going to live to fight another day, and I will fight for that Ukraine funding. But I'm happy that we're keeping the government open for all those federal employees and for all Americans so that we don't crash our economy.
How much of a surprise did it come to you that Senator Mitch McConnell led the bypassing of a procedural vote, saying, okay, let's just see if this passes in the House. Let's see. He got his Republican caucus, reportedly on board that they would vote for this stopgap measure. How surprising is that for you to see that the sequence of events changed abruptly today in just really a matter of hours?
Well, look, it doesn't surprise me that people talk around Capitol Hill, right? So I'm sure the Speaker's office and the Senate Minority Office were in constant contact on what, they each could get their members to vote for, right? We're in divided government. The House is controlled by Republicans. The Senate is controlled by Democrats. And so, as a Democrat who got 90% of what he would have liked to seen, I voted for it. By the way, so did every single solitary other Democrat except one Democrat. And that's because we understand the catastrophic failure it would have been to close the government. I mean, remember, we didn't have to get here. This is the same crew that, almost, took us off the cliff with the debt ceiling, took us right to the brink of defaulting on our debt, and they took us right to the brink of closing the government. And so we could have been doing this weeks ago to avert this crisis, but I'm glad, obviously, that the House passed this on a bipartisan basis.
So among Democrats earlier today, among the arguments being made about, this newest measure is that you weren't being given enough time to thoroughly digest it, to read through the 72 pages. We saw Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries take advantage of, the magic minutes. Was that time in which that led to you being able to pour through all the details, read it thoroughly, talk among your colleagues about likes, dislikes in the package. What happened in that elapse of time?
Well, listen, I'm a pretty quick read. It was clear to me that it was a almost perfectly clean CR with disaster aid. And as soon as I made the conclusion that it was a clean CR with fulfilling the White House's request on disaster aid, the $16 billion, I came out and said I was a yes vote. I think it was a mistake for Republicans to try to push this through and give people 20 minutes to read the bill. That's not what they promised to do. They promised to give people time to read bills around here. Oftentimes this place passes, 1,000-page bills with very little time to read them. So I'm glad that the Leader Jeffries did that and took the time so members around here could read it. I think that's important. But it was very easy for me to read it, come to my conclusion, see it was a clean CR with disaster aid, and get on board. And that's why 99.9% of Democrats here voted for the bill.
All right, Florida Congressman Jared Moskowitz, thank you so much for your time. All the best today.
Thank you.